If COVID didn't happen, maybe we'd be 10 times the size of the company we are.
Well,
It's hard to write well if you're having muddied thoughts. Muddied thoughts lead to muddled writing. You can't communicate muddled thoughts. But as you use it, you start to see that the work you get back from AI is full of cliches. It's not original, it's not creative. It's fine. Again, hope is not a strategy. You don't just go out and put money into advertising and hope that it works.
well, hi Phil, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. I'm excited to see you today and to talk about what you do at Mandel Marketing. And this is our Business Leaders podcast. And I, fortunately for me, got to pick your brain about all the things I care about for marketing my business before we went live with our interview. So thanks for the free consult from a 25-year expert. So good of you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's my
Well,
pleasure.
I can absolutely recommend that anybody watching go ahead and get their consult with Mandel Marketing. But first, I want to talk to you about you and your brother Jay and the founding of your company. You're sort of bi-coastal. If Texas is the third coast, you have an East Coast brother in New York. You want to tell me how that worked?
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in New York. I've been in the Midwest for about 15 years, first Chicago, and I've been in Texas for about 10 years. But the whole family's still back in New York. And so my brother Jay and I started the company a few years ago. And so I'm here in Austin. He's back in New York. We've got clients around the country, around the world, but primarily either here in Texas or out in the East Coast. That's where a lot of our clients are. And so we do all our business via Zoom and via video calls. So
Very good.
yeah, we actually started the company right before COVID, and not the best time to start a company, you would think. But it turns out once everybody got onto getting comfortable with video calls, we were actually able to work with companies all over the world, Europe, China, Canada, and everyone just got really comfortable with video calls. And so it's actually, I mean, who knows what could have happened if COVID didn't happen? Maybe we'd be 10 times the size of the company we are.
Well, you've saved some money on airfare, if nothing else.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. Yeah, we weathered the storm all right due to video calls. Thank you, Zoom. That's my plug.
No kidding. I feel the same about Zoom. I'm not having to go find an office, invite people into my office, go back across town as I used to have to do. So, well, I know you've written a book, so I want to touch on that first because it's kind of a central theme to the sort of marketing that you do. One of your pillars is good writing. And so you talk in your book about how, you know, MFA can support your MBA. So you want to share a little bit about your book and why you think it matters even in this world of AI writing?
Sure, yeah. So I wrote a book, came out last year. It's called An MFA for Your MBA.
Okay.
So, yeah, we started the company a few years ago. I have about 25 years of experience in advertising, in media planning and media sales. And my brother is our creative director and strategy director. He came from the creative side and branding. So I also have an MA in literature and English literature and an MFA in creative writing.
Okay.
So I write short stories, novels, poetry, and creative writing is very, very important to me. And I take it very seriously. It's not just a hobby.
We have a literary magazine that's kind of
Right.
evidence of that. Yeah, the Abandoned Journal, is that the name?
Abandoned Journal. Yeah, I started Abandoned Journal a few years ago. I ran the literary journal. I was the editor-in-chief of the literary journal when I was in the MFA program at Texas State University. And so, yeah, we publish poetry, short stories, fiction, memoir, and I take it very seriously. And now, granted, I run an advertising agency. That's my career, and we work with clients. But I think good writing is important for all good marketing. And the reason is that good writing comes from good thinking. So it's hard to write well if you're having muddied thoughts. Muddied thoughts lead to muddled writing. You can't communicate muddled thoughts. So good marketing and good advertising also comes from good thinking. One of the principles that we apply in the MFA for an MBA is that you have to revise a lot and you have to iterate a lot. You don't just use the first idea that comes to mind or the first word that comes to mind. There's a thing that Anne Lamott talks about in her book called the magic of shitty first draft.
I've read her books, but I haven't read that one.
Yeah, her book is called Bird by Bird.
Bird by Bird. Yes,
Bird by Bird,
I love
yeah.
that book. Yeah.
Yeah. So in any case, the idea is that in a first draft, if you embrace the idea that the first draft is not going to be great, and it doesn't have to be great.
Mhm.
That it opens you up to a freedom to try a bunch of stuff, to get yourself out there. You don't stop yourself, you don't censor yourself,
Mhm.
but it does require that you're going to go back and revise it.
Mhm.
And so if you're just tossing off an email to somebody and being like, hey, I'll meet you at 2 o'clock for the coffee, whatever, that's fine. You can just write that. But if you're going to write a headline for an ad campaign, or you're going to write, say, a targeting document, or whatever you have to do, it's a brochure for a real estate company, or you're a law firm and you have to write whatever. If you're writing something important, then you want to not use the first iteration that comes to mind. You want to revise it because the first thing you do is probably going to be replete with cliches. It's going to be too long. You want to shorten it. It's going to be meandering. It by necessity, that's how it works.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes people revise within the first draft, so that's okay. Like you write and then you revise, and so rather than tossing off something in an hour, it take you 3 hours. Fine, but as long as you're going back and fixing it. So what I do with the MFA for an MBA is I apply the principles of a master's in fine arts in creative writing. I apply the principles of an MFA to your MBA, which is basically just, your business writing. So it's
Mhm.
taking the ideas of creative writing and applying them to professional communication.
Mhm.
So, for example, I talked about cliche or brevity, but we also look at character, POV, voice and tone,
Mhm.
we look at metaphor, all these things that you associate with, say, a novel, it does apply to your business writing as well.
That's so exciting that you bring that depth of experience to, what a client would be doing with their marketing or with their advertising. I saw recently a picture of an old, like 1960s VW bug advertisement. They had some brilliant advertisers back in the day, and it showed a picture of a bug, but it was only 25% of it. Three-quarters of it was off frame, and it said the value of small, and then it said 25% down.
Mhm.
So it was like a visual understanding of it's a small car, it's a small down payment, this is the value of this. So when it sings, you can really see good marketing, good advertising, good writing. It just really communicates the message to you completely.
Yeah, yeah. Creativity is hard. That
Mhm.
we talk about that in the book is really good creative is hard. It takes a long time. People think that it's just like sort of this inspiration, lightning in a bottle. Oh, you either have it or you don't, and if you could just do it, and that's not how it works. And in an MFA program, you realize that because you write like, I don't know, 50 stories, and two of them are awesome. I mean, I promise you, the best novelists, the best writers ever,
Mhm.
they all write a ton, and you only see the best work. You only see the novel after it's been edited 100 times. A friend
Mhm.
of mine just came out with a book, a novel. It's terrific. I read it in 2 days. She worked on that book for 12 years. That means that the first iteration of that book was completely different.
Yes.
So you may look at the book and go, "Oh, wow, how does she must be a genius?" And she's a great writer, there's no question. But
Mhm.
becoming a great writer or a great advertiser or making that VW bug ad,
Mhm.
that didn't just appear like that. That
Mhm.
happened over hours and hours of brainstorms and revisions and stuff going in up on the whiteboard and then going in the trash. That's how it works. And so we talk about revision a lot in the book. And one thing that you mentioned AI, one thing that I wrote the book before AI came out, or before it came out as much as it did.
Right.
And one thing that the book sort of underscores is that as people use AI, and I have no problem with AI,
Right.
nothing against it, but as you use it, you start to see that the work you get back from AI is full of cliches. It's not original. It's not creative. It's
Mhm.
fine. Again,
Mhm.
if you're writing an email that doesn't matter and you're just like, hey, I'll see you at 2 o'clock, or here's the
Mhm.
deliverables you requested, thanks.
Mhm.
Yeah, use AI to polish up your language. That's fine. Get rid of it. It's no different than a spell check to remove your typos.
Mhm.
But if you want something creative or you want something that's impactful, there has to be some kind of human creativity or oversight to it that is going to be more interesting. And
Right.
so as people are using AI to generate just mountains and mountains of words, it all sort of looks the same. And that actually is worse because now it's harder to stick out. So that VW bug ad could never be generated by AI.
Yeah.
Maybe it could if you're a genius, or you again use 50,000 prompts, which again is
Mhm.
provision. So it's kind of using
Right.
it in the same.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So the book underscores that these principles that you learn in an MFA program can be applied to business communication.
Well, we were talking initially before we went, onto our recording here about AI is kind of a first draft process. It'll give you your initial talking points. It'll give you the shape of your proposal or whatever you're talking about. But then the human component has to go from there to make it interesting or to make it dramatic or to make it exciting or to make it compelling. Those things don't come from AI writing. And so we were talking about how someone puts value on what you're paying a marketer, what you're paying someone who's helping with your advertising or with rebranding, which you do. You create branding campaigns or pivot branding from where it is. And there are a lot more components that go in that. But people can be confused a little bit by saying, well, I'm just going to type in some prompts into an AI generator and I'll have the same thing. But it is not the same thing. Do you want to speak to that? It's a beginning, but a lot of cliches and a lot of stuff that falls flat. It doesn't have that deep human design component to it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one day it will. And I mean, I guess at that point I'll hang up my glove and I'll retire, I guess. I don't know. I mean, yeah, AI is fine. Like I said, like if you need to use AI for to help spur creativity or to
Mm-hmm.
outline something, go for it. I
Mm-hmm.
certainly wouldn't tell somebody to hire me instead of using AI. But
Mm-hmm.
what I will find is that people could use AI and the work that they get back after a little while, they realize isn't usable long term
Mm-hmm.
or for real work. And so they might wind up hiring us anyway to write
Mm-hmm.
stuff for them. We do a lot more than just copywriting though. I mean, yeah, for a rebrand, for example,
Mm-hmm.
we do a marketing plan, right? That's part of our services. We do fractional CMO work, and part of that is a whole marketing plan. Now
Mm-hmm.
you could go into AI and you
Mm-hmm.
could type in a prompt like write a marketing plan.
Mhm.
And now you have a document, and it's as useless as had you not. You could have bought marketing for dummies at the store too, right? So
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
has to work for you. Somebody has to talk to you and find out about your business and understand
Mhm.
what works and what doesn't and why. It's the same thing. AI is a good tool. It's like a hammer,
Mhm.
or a screwdriver or any other
Mhm.
tool. It's fine,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it has to be wielded by somebody who can use it in the right way.
One of the things that you mentioned was in your work as a fractional CMO, all the different ways companies are growing or changing in the various stages. Your work in digital marketing is like a day-to-day laboratory where you notice the SEO changes with Google, you notice what's working, what's not working in all the clients that you're working with, and all of that data is shared with your current clients. You have the benefit of the professor in the laboratory that's watching the digital marketing landscape that is changing as fast as everything else is changing.
Yeah, well, you use the word professor. It's interesting. So Jay, my partner and my brother, he actually is a marketing professor. So he teaches marketing as well as working on client stuff, and
Mhm.
it's his job to stay on top of
Mhm.
all the changes, and it's
Mhm.
changing fast.
Mhm.
So I got in the business in 2003,
Mhm.
and I was one of the first sort of they called it digital media planners.
Mhm.
And I was an integrated media planner, which meant that I worked on both traditional, which was
Mhm.
print and out of home and
Mhm.
TV and radio,
Mhm.
as well
Mhm.
as this internet stuff. And now
Mhm.
it's just media planning. It's all the same. But
Right.
back
It's all
then,
combined.
there were separate teams. They didn't talk to each other.
Mhm.
So things changed every couple of years. Now things change every couple of months. And so that's why, we were talking about generative SEO or
Mhm.
GEO or what, SEO in
Mhm.
general. What's it called? And I mentioned, whatever I say today on May 9th may not even be applicable on June 9th. Things are
Right.
changing quickly.
Right.
One of the reasons why having us or any agency or anyone on your team dedicated to marketing as a business owner or a CEO, is that it's part of their job to stay on top of the trends
Mhm.
and to understand what's available. AI is also a good example. AI keeps coming out with amazing new things.
Mhm,
And so learning and staying on top of what's available and how much it
mhm,
costs, what's good and what's not good,
mhm,
that's part of our job too. So, AI is now creating really good video content. Uh,
mhm,
Maybe that doesn't replace a videographer to do an in-person interview,
mhm,
but it could give you a couple of social media spots and maybe
mhm.
you save some money that way. So, yeah, part of our job is to stay on top of those trends on a digital landscape and, with everything else.
I think it's important to know that you can be external to the company as a fractional CMO, but still help work with even higher internal marketing people so that, whatever that company needs, whatever their budget is, you can be supporting them in, okay, we've launched a rebranding. You have a viable marketing plan, and now you have one or two people who are doing it every day. And we're going to be quarterly from this point forward, or whatever that looks like. There's so much flexibility in the world of marketing today with different companies of different sizes. We even talked about a company that was founded in the 60s and then rebooted 25 years ago, and they needed a rebranding. So, whether your industry has changed a lot or it hasn't changed until now and now it needs updating, you guys have the chops to take a look and say, yeah, this is where now is, and this is where you are, and we're going to bring you into 2025.
Sure, yeah, yeah. I can talk about that client a little bit. So, they're a local Austin client.
Mhm.
It's an apartment complex that was built in
Mhm.
the 1960s, and
Mhm.
obviously Austin has changed a lot. It's
They were
changed a
driving
lot.
those Volkswagens in the 60s. That's how
Yeah,
much
I
it's
mean the
changed.
city, the city's changed a lot in the last 5 years, let alone the last 50 years. But the complex was built in the 60s. It was revamped in the early 2000s, and they hired us, and now we're helping with their messaging. And so we're acting as both an agency doing agency services. So we're providing media activation, advertising, creative, social media
Mhm.
consultation. We're also acting as a branding and rebranding partner. So we work very closely with them on what the messaging has been and what the messaging should be.
Mhm.
And it's not, again, like back to that lightning in a bottle sort of, oh, I'm a genius, so I came up with a great idea.
Mhm.
Yeah, we do have great ideas. We've been doing it for 20 plus years, so
Mhm.
we work hard at it, but we also did a ton of research
Mhm.
and had a ton of strategy sessions. And we
Mhm.
put a lot of time and effort into coming up with what the marketing strategy and the messaging should be. And
Mhm.
it did completely change what they were talking about. Uh,
Yes.
in a nutshell, what they had been talking about was sort of rate-driven messaging.
Yes.
So you talk about pricing, promotions, rents, and that is important. You never want to just remove all that, but they
Right.
were losing the reason for someone wanting to live at this particular place. And that was
Right.
what we focused our messaging on. And you might say, now that I've mentioned it, you might go, oh, that's obvious. It's not obvious. Please. And that's what we do as an agency, or what any good marketer or strategy person in that role. That's their job is to figure that out. So this happens to be for an apartment complex, but it could be for anything that's being sold.
Well, and when you look at the fractional ways that marketing can be done, in this kind of business, a TikTok following makes sense. In this kind of business, Instagram is your home. In this kind of business, you're building groups on Facebook or whatever that looks like. TV, radio makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. To have an expert just have their hand on the wheel, even if it's only quarterly, to say, well, let's look at what happened in the last quarter. Where are we getting traction? Can we double down in those things? You're bringing all those years of insight to those questions so that as you answer them, the next direction is a profitable one for your client.
Yeah, and that's exactly what a strategic person or a consultant will do. So you can
Mhm,
call it a chief marketing officer or a fractional CMO, you can call it a
mhm,
marketing consultant.
mhm,
The idea is that if you don't need to hire a $350,000 a year CMO full-time position, you
mhm,
might hire a fractional CMO or a marketing consultant or an agency on a part-time basis to get the work done and then maybe pop back in every quarter to check on things.
mhm,
Part of what we do in our fractional CMO services is organizational though. So we work with leadership, CEO,
Mhm.
board, and we hire in place the marketing team, or we help them hire so
Mhm.
that eventually we can hand the keys back to them and they
Mhm.
can activate on all the stuff. We can train them up and
Mhm.
they can take the reins and fly. And then we can
Mhm.
check in and help and sort of correct course where it needs to be,
Mhm.
help set up KPIs and optimization and reporting so that, when they go to market with whatever we've recommended,
Mhm.
we can look at it and say, this is working, this is not working. Let's pivot to
Mhm.
more TikTok or more
Mhm.
TV, whatever the case is for their target audience. But you don't just throw things out there and hope that it works.
Right. The spaghetti against the wall strategy, not a viable one.
No, I had a sales manager. I mean, this is a cliche at this point, but I had never heard it. I had a sales manager a few years ago who's had a big sign hanging on the sales room floor that said, "Hope is not a strategy."
Yeah, hope.
When I saw it the first time, I was like, "Wow, that's clever." Then I saw it like a million places elsewhere, but you don't always have to see a cliche for the first time, and you think
Mhm.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's true. Hope is not a strategy. You don't just go out and put money into advertising and hope that it works. You
Mhm.
want to have research and you want to have confidence that it's going in the right direction. That being said, you know, advertising doesn't always work the way it's planned, and
Mhm.
that's why you want to have a team that's nimble and you can make changes and you want to report on it. You don't just place all the ads for a year and then check in a year later and say, oh, it worked or it didn't work.
I knew the story on TikTok during COVID of a marketing executive who would just document her day as a marketing executive at home during COVID. And she blew up so much on TikTok and was taking on advertisers. People were paying to be mentioned. She left her job. And
Wow.
then I was thinking about her when they were talking about banning TikTok. I mean, there are things that are literally outside of your control. And here she is having this big marketing impact and a business from her home studio in New York about, on TikTok, this is what a CMO looks like when she works from home, and then maybe to have the platform disappear on you. Or people who have a big YouTube presence or a big Instagram presence and then somehow find themselves crossways with the terms of service. And now, oh my gosh, your business is gone, you have to reboot. So you have the discipline and the understanding, and a brother who's a professor in these things in New York, to say, we're going to have a couple of baskets and put our eggs in different ones. We're not just going to make a living on Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah, the creator economy is really interesting. It's new. It never existed before in the way that it did now. And
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, as professionals, we would never recommend to any of our clients only
A
use
single
one.
vertical, a single
Yeah.
platform.
But there are exigencies that you simply can't help, right?
Mhm.
Tariffs. We have a client that's a manufacturer, and
Mhm.
the tariffs came out of nowhere, and they
Mhm.
have to plan for that. But they're in business, and
Mhm.
they have
Mhm.
plans, and
Mhm.
as marketers, we also have plans, right? So
Mhm.
we don't necessarily recommend TikTok if it's not the right place, but if it is,
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
we'll work with somebody. We'll make sure that we're ahead of the game. If TikTok is going to get banned or people are going to stop using it, we need to
Mhm.
be able to pivot. So, yeah, part of the reason why you want to have a team on your side is that they can
Mhm.
help anticipate those things or at
Mhm.
least help fix them when it happens out of the blue.
When you wonder what now, you guys have ideas about what now. You can repurpose, existing collateral, existing media, and examine other platforms. Here's the number two, number three, number four platforms for the thing you are already doing. We have a path forward about what to do next. And, with things changing so fast and how you make your living potentially on some of these platforms, or even if it's just we're a 10-person company. We'd like to be a 25-person company, or we'd like to open another location, whatever that looks like. Having an expert help with the marketing and advertising so that it's right sized for you and what you're going to accomplish really makes that job easier, that growth prospect more reliable.
Yeah, we're working with a client right now who's actually opening up a new location
Mm,
in Dallas. And
mm,
so working with her on social media channels and all other stuff. But we're also not neglecting local
mhm,
media, right? Local
mhm,
newspaper, local radio, you know, uh, social media gets so much overplay.
Mhm.
Everyone talks about it. I mean, TikTok is an addictive
Mhm.
video scrolling.
It messes you with your brain chemistry, the
Sure,
dopamine hits.
sure.
It's like
Yeah, it's
I've
amazing.
addicted myself to the scrolling or something, yeah.
Right. And so we have clients who are like, oh, I gotta get on TikTok. And my brother
Mhm,
Jay is like, okay,
mhm,
do you have a message that's gonna break through the scroll?
mhm,
If you
mhm,
don't, it's not gonna work. You could put your
mhm.
messages on there all day, but
Yeah,
that's a hard attention to get.
yeah.
And if you do, are they the right audience? 17-year-olds, are they gonna
Will they
buy?
buy your stuff? Yeah, is it where it should be targeted? So, it's really good to know that there's solid 20+ year advice out there for people who are looking at some marketing spend or looking at a rebranding, or who've said, "We've come as far as we could come DIY." It's
Yes.
time now to kind of talk to an expert, spend some real money. If we have some free cash flow, let's sit down with somebody and get an idea about what that looks like. So, and I love that the book can help people say, as good as you are at business, writing is a component. You're going to need to be good at that too.
Yeah, and it's not just about writing too, it's about professional communication. So
Mhm.
I would argue that getting better at writing or using the principles in the book or reading the book, and there's a lot of exercises too. Every
Oh,
chapter has
good.
writing
Mhm.
exercises. It will help you in your personal life and in general, just get what you're trying to say across,
Mhm.
even if it's just person to person or in speaking.
Mhm.
One thing that people struggle a lot with public speaking or any kind of speaking is they say and like, and of course, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that as long as it doesn't interrupt your speech.
Mhm.
But those pieces that get in the way can get frustrating, and you're trying
Mhm.
to get across what you're trying to say, and the other person isn't hearing you, and it devolves, and then emotions get involved, right? So this isn't just about writing a better email
Mhm.
or closing a deal,
Mhm.
but it's you can communicate across the board with everybody better if you get better at these principles,
Mhm.
and it will help your professional life as well.
That's stronger managing for your company, but I'm thinking about, 3,000 people laid off here, 10,000 people laid off there. They're gonna try to make an impression with someone who might be hiring them into a business. So being able to effectively communicate what their value proposition is, that would be useful for people that are in a job hunt too. Well, so
Sure.
how do people get a hold of you, Phil, if they want to work with you and Jay and Mandel Marketing? How does that happen?
Yeah, you just check us out at mandelmarketing.com. You can follow us on we're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the best way. It's the most.
I think LinkedIn, yeah, for businesses. Probably not on TikTok.
We are not on TikTok. No. I am not
Mhm.
on TikTok. I'm sure a lot of our clients are. I'm sure a lot of employees are. I personally, not
Mhm.
TikTok's not for me. But yeah, I mean, we're on all the standard socials, or you
Mhm.
can find us on
Mhm.
LinkedIn,
Mhm.
mandelmarketing.com, and
Very good.
we're available for a consultation. Part of what you mentioned was, if a
Mhm.
company is at that point where they've done it as much as they can alone, and now they want to hire somebody.
Yeah.
Part of what we do is a free consultation. But one thing we talked about was, hiring us on sort of on a 3 or 6 month basis. We
Mhm.
also do like 1 or 2 day workshops. And
Mhm.
that is something that might help a company. They're not quite sure what they need for the
Mhm.
rest of 2025 and planning into 26. They know they
Mhm.
want to grow. They're not
Mhm.
sure what it is. Maybe a
Mhm.
1 or 2 day workshop is really all they need at the moment because
Mhm.
we can help audit everything they've done. We can
Mhm.
help come up with their messaging, that look at their competitive, do a SWOT analysis, and then help them plan using existing resources. Okay, you've got a team of marketers, you've got a team of social media. You don't need to
Mhm.
hire an agency for this.
Mhm.
You need a good setup and a good plan, and then
Mhm.
let's talk in 3 or 6 months and see where you're
Mhm.
at. So sometimes that's all somebody needs.
That refinement in the thinking about a brand, do we need to refresh? Do we need to rebrand? What is our direction for the future? I'll leave you with this thought. When the Got Milk campaign came out and was so popular with California, the dairy board, I was working in the Oracle consulting space, and the president wanted a Got Consulting board, billboard above the Oracle Conference Center before the, and I said, it's not going to translate the way Got Milk does. Got Consulting doesn't quite have the same ring, but the copycatting and the Me Too is kind of a dangerous track that sometimes leaders can go down because they didn't check with an expert about. We've looked at your landscape, we've looked at your competitors, we've looked at what the direction of your growth is. Here's some more refined thinking for you about what your messaging should be.
Yeah, the refinement of the thinking I think is really important. The
Mhm.
gut consulting might at first blush seem somewhat clever or funny or something, but not a good idea.
It's
And
very derivative and Me Too, and it looks lazy.
exactly, right? But it's the first thought. And that goes back to the whole idea of eliminating cliches, not using the first thing that comes to your mind,
Mhm.
revising. If he really thought about it and he had come up with 10 ideas for what to put on the board,
Mhm.
not consulting would have been his first thing, been like, nah, it's not the right one. Let me come up with something better. So
Mhm.
that's exactly the point. Yeah.
Kind of the iteration and refine the thinking. Well, it's been delightful. Thanks for the free consulting before our little interview
Sure.
here. And I
Anytime.
encourage other people to talk to you too. You guys know what you're doing. Thanks so much, Phil. It was great to see you.
Thank you.